Hi, this is Eric Hess with the Encrypted Economy. Today's episode, we have Jack Liu, CEO and founder of Wanchain, as well as Weijia Zhang, who is the VP of Engineering at Wanchain as well. This is part of effectively a series that we've been doing, trying to get more into the infrastructure and how things work, where we've had Richard Yan regarding proof of stake on the podcast a number of weeks ago, Yuri Klarman speaking about layer one, the mempool, how blocks are ordered on the chain, and even miner extractable value. After that, we had John Wu talking about algorithmic stablecoins and how they operate. So this is trying to give a sense to the listeners of how things operate, so you can tie it in with the overall significance. And alongside of that, we do also obviously less technical episodes as well, some legal, some more about use cases, but we do try to mix it up a bit on the encrypted economy. So on this episode, again, we talked a lot about private blockchains, which I thought was a very interesting conversation, particularly when we started getting into CBDCs and the regulatory potential for regulatory blockchains acting as a permissioning system on and off a private blockchain. Certainly something we are likely to see in the future, particularly as regulations in countries or even rules within banks start to arise and how those environments interact across the public blockchain. At one point, we talked about sharding. Now, sharding, we didn't define in this episode, and I'm not going to define here because we did that with Yuri Klarman. But for all of those who are interested, we actually segment a number of pieces of episodes that we've done and put it onto YouTube in what we call encrypted bytes or mini bytes for easy reference. So what is sharding is actually it might be an encrypted byte, where basically it's just that component of the discussion with Yuri, where we talk about what is sharding. So if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel and seen how we sort of organize the different encrypted and mini bytes there, we've been putting a fair amount of work into creating that as an easy reference. I would encourage you to do so. And of course, if you like it, share this, share that. And thank you for being a listener. Hope you enjoy this episode with Jack Liu and Weijia Zhang. Welcome to the Encrypted Economy, a weekly podcast featuring discussions exploring the business, laws, regulation, security, and technologies relating to digital assets and data. I am Eric Hess, founder of Hess Legal Counsel. I've spent decades representing regulated exchanges, broker-dealers, investment advisors, and all matter of fintech companies for all things touching electronic trading, with a focus on new and developing technologies. This is Eric Hess with the Encrypted Economy. Today, I'm really excited to have Jack Liu, founder and CEO of Wanchain, as well as Weijia Zhang, who is the VP of Engineering for Wanchain as well. We're going to learn a lot about what Wanchain does today, as well as cross-chain interoperability. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show. So, Jack, why don't we start with maybe give your background and how you sort of got to Wanchain and where you are today, and then we'll move on to Weijia to do the same.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I grew up in China. I moved to US in mid-90s. I studied in computer science and economics. I have kind of a mixed background. I got into blockchain space because I was in the internet world. I've been a software engineer for over 20 years. I was working in Austin, Texas, and got exposed to a blockchain, and got into this quite early in 2012, and also did some mining and Bitcoin mining and also coding, and started a blockchain project in the early days in 2014. And I started blockchain company in China as well, and I've been traveling around the world. I started the Wanchain project in 2017.
Excellent. And Weijia, how about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Yeah, this is Weijia, VP of Engineering of Wanchain. I have been a software engineer as well, just like Jack. I was a principal engineer at Dell for 13 years, and also have a PhD in physics and published over 30 technical papers and have over 20 US patents. And I met Jack in 2017, and Jack mentioned about Wanchain project. I was very interested, so I joined Wanchain team since 2017. Yeah.
Excellent. So now Wanchain, the project itself, maybe Jack, do you want to give us a little bit about, the project itself?
WAN, WAN in our computer world stands for wide area network. And we're trying to build a wide area network of blockchains. And Wanchain itself is a public chain, and we are connecting with many, public chains as well as private chains. We act as a hub and a facilitator to make sure that all the isolated blockchains are connected. When in Chinese actually stands for 10,000, and we're trying to connect 10,000 chains eventually.
Well, I guess are we up to 10,000 chains? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure, but the chains have to get there before you connect them, right? To 10,000. So, and that's that's really exciting. This notion of the interoperability or the internet of blockchain, as you frame it. Do you want to kind of build on how the parallels to the internet?
Yeah. In the early days, actually in my early days as a consultant, I know that many companies have their own computers connected, right? They created something called local area networks. And these networks are not connected to outside of that company, right? Sometimes. And in today's blockchain world, even in the public chain, right? Use Bitcoin as an example, right? It's built on top of internet, right? But they have their own protocol. I mean, their consensus and protocol and their own languages, right? Not talking to other blockchains, right? It's kind of a local area network in the early days of the internet, right? But eventually, we know that all these, local area networks, when they are connected to the internet, when we create the internet, right? When we build all kinds of applications, all the innovations on internet, then when we see all the value, the powerful value that bring to everybody, right? I think that it will be the same for a blockchain as well. Right now, we have a lot of private or consortium chains built by many companies or private companies, and even the public chains, they are not connected. We call it value islands. They are not connected to each other, right? Eventually, the assets and also the data, they have to be exchanged, right? And we have to build applications on top of all these blockchains. And it's very important for all these isolated blockchains to be connected. And I think, it took internet around 30 or 40 years to get here. But since we already have internet, compared to 40 years ago, I think blockchain industry will move a lot faster.
Right. So yeah, Wanchain, as opposed to maybe a project like Polkadot. Polkadot sort of has its Polkadot network, and you have a number of projects that are based on that protocol. And those are sort of, there's interconnectivity to some extent with other chains, but to a large extent, you're operating within the Polkadot ecosystem, or you're operating with the Cardano ecosystem, or you're acting within like Tendermint as that ecosystem. But Wanchain is different because Wanchain is across all different chains, whether it's Polkadot, Cardano, others that don't have their own ecosystem, and even, I guess, private systems is what you were referencing too, right? Private blockchains.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We are trying to build universal connectors or integration mechanisms that will connect with any type of blockchains, right? And currently we have proved that to the market. We have, since 2017, we have integrated with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and EOS, and Litecoin. And recently, we just announced that we integrate with Polkadot as well, right? Many other chains on the way, right? So we have proved that we do have the capability or mechanism to connect with any type of chains, including the blockchains. Private blockchains. We published our trusted bridge mechanism that will be able to connect with local area networks. We call it private chains. Yeah.
Right. And I think I read recently that, you're connecting to XRP, enabled XRP to now be used in decentralized applications in a way that wasn't even possible before, like maybe even facilitating XRP entering into DeFi. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, exactly. Right. We integrate with XRP ledger just not long ago, but XRP tokens can be transferred to not only Wanchain but also Ethereum. Right. We have some new mechanism called multi-chain, infrastructure, or cross-chain bridge infrastructure. XRP can be moved onto different chains, and these tokens can remain the same. And when user move those tokens onto Ethereum or Wanchain, they can participate in many of the DeFi activities. In just a number of weeks, we have more than 6 million XRP tokens move on to Wanchain alone. Right? There are tens of thousands of transactions happening, and many users are using them. So this is very, very good, and we are moving onto other chains as well. I think we can see that these bridges do provide value for many of the blockchain users.
Great. So now we're going to start to get a little bit into how Wanchain works, because there's obviously, it's not easy, or else everybody else would do it, right? So, and there are a lot of cross-chain concepts that you use, right? There's that are used. There's the source chain, there's target chain, there's the native token, transform token, one-way bridge, bridging between chains, two-way bridge, direct bridge staking, and collateral. That's a lot. But, in order to understand how this operates, it'd be good to sort of just walk through these concepts before digging into, what Wanchain does, with regards to them.
Yeah, I can, Jack, I can give an explanation of that. I think Jack gave a very good analogy about inter-blockchain versus inter-PCs. And if you look at the bridges, they're just like network connections when you view TCP/IP for internet. So when we say source chain, we mean that blockchain A, they'll be connected with the target chain, which is blockchain B, through a bridge. So source chain is where the asset originally resides and where the action will take place. And the target chain is the one that the asset will be moved to and that the action will take place after the bridge operation.
Right. So when we were just talking about XRP being able to leverage Ethereum and access the DeFi applications, that would be, in that case, XRP would be source chain A, and target chain and Ethereum would be the target chain, right?
Yes. If you move it from XRP to Ethereum, then that's the source chain. The other one is the target chain. But if you move it back, then it's the other way.
Right.
Yeah, and we introduce the concept of native token because that's important. Let's take the analogy of Bitcoin versus Ethereum blockchain. You can probably move BTC from Bitcoin to Ethereum, but rarely people will not move Ether from Ethereum blockchain to Bitcoin. And that's the native token concept. BTC is native in the BTC blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain, and Ether is native in Ethereum blockchain. So when we say one-way bridge, we mean that native token can transfer from blockchain A to blockchain B, but not the other way. So for example, Ether cannot be transferred from Ethereum blockchain to Bitcoin blockchain. Therefore, all the bridges so far is one-way bridge. You can move BTC from Bitcoin blockchain to Ethereum blockchain, not the other way. The native cannot be moved. Yeah. So that's the concept of native token versus and the one-way bridge. And Wanchain is able to do the two-way bridge because Ether can be moved from Ethereum blockchain to Wanchain, and one coin can be moved from Wanchain to Ethereum blockchain. So it's two-way bridge.
Okay, and so what's the concept of a transform token?
A transform token is like this. Okay, there's a little bit difference here. When you move a token from a source chain to the target chain, you need to lock the token on the source chain. And then the other one, the wrap token on the target chain is a transform token because it has dependency on the source chain. And this is important for us to know because the token that is locked in the source chain has implications for the security as well. So the source chain security is very important. You just lock it there, it still exists, and you transfer to the target chain, and that is the transform token on the target chain.
Right, and you lock it so that you don't have like a double spend issue, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. And then, so what's the concept of bridge staking and collateral? How does that come into play?
Yeah, for bridges, right, you need to make sure it's secure, it is decentralized. So there are two kinds of bridges. One is the permissioned bridge. For example, when you are connecting with a private blockchain, you are connecting like banks, those are trusted entities. So you probably have a permissioned node, and then you don't need to do a staking, things like that. But if you are connecting a public blockchain with public blockchain, you are making that permissionless. So everybody can be a node to operate the bridge. And in that case, you have to have something to secure the bridge. And the way we do it is to make sure bridge node operators actually put their stake into the bridge operation so that they will not do something wrong. So they will not do the collusion. If they do something wrong, their stake will be slashed based on the mechanism we have.
Yeah. It's very similar to a proof of stake mechanism. We modify that and apply to that. We call it Stallman mechanism, Stallman nodes. It's very similar to a POS.
Okay, and then there's the storeman concept, where the storeman is transferring between, I guess, a layer 1 and a layer 2 solution. Is that, or it could be
potentially? When we say layer 1, layer 2, it's popular because the gas or the transaction cost on Ethereum is quite high, and we are working on that, and we are building the bridges or solutions to facilitate. Assets can be transferred directly to layer 2 potentially, and also with connections to layer 1 as well. Basically, allow users to transfer their assets from layer 1 to layer 2, and also to through other chains as well at the same time in a lot faster and easier way.
Excellent. And then there's the notion of the voucher too, right? The voucher also serves a similar, I guess, validating role, where the voucher would commit the block information of layer that you have on layer 2 on layer 1. Is that right?
Yeah, the voucher mechanism, as we stated in the white paper, is really, it's more like a one type of validators to make sure that information being transferred from one block to another is valid. Or we have the right mechanism or use the similar consensus mechanism, make sure that the information is being transferred correctly.
Great. So maybe let's go through some of the, I know he touched on it, but cross-chain use cases. What do you see as some of the most compelling cross-chain use cases? I mean, maybe it's Ethereum, going to Ethereum, but maybe if you could develop on it, what trends do you see developing?
Yeah, there are many of them. Actually, Wanchain has been chairing Crosschain Interoperability work group, and for EEA, Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And EEA actually published a document called Crosschain Interoperability use cases. And over there, we have over 12 use cases listed. And this is working with kinematics and consensus as well. So obvious one would be the Crosschain DeFi, right? You can do Crosschain exchanges. You can do Crosschain transform. You can also do Crosschain asset applications. And also you can do a lot of things like CBDC. Actually, by the end of this month, the MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, is having a global CBDC challenge, the central bank digital currency challenge. And they have a topic called interoperability and standards. And that is about kind of how do you make different blockchains work together. So we are submitting a proposal for cross-chain operation among different CBDC blockchains together with consensus. And so there are many use cases other than the DeFi. We also can connect different banks, digital currency, and also we can do like a cross-chain content syndication. We can do even cross-chain charity. A lot of things can be done with cross-chain.
Well,
one thing I want to add, Eric, is integration with the traditional financial world. I think that's our goal. It's in the early stage, right? Many companies, especially the financial institutions, are building private blockchains or consorting blockchains, and many of the traditional assets will be moved on to blockchains. And eventually, when we are connecting all of those private blockchains, and those trillions of traditional financial assets can be integrated or connected with the public chain as well. And at that time, the real cross-chain technology will show its value. Yeah.
No, it really was eye-opening when you talked about CBDCs potentially using Wanchain, because we often think in terms of CBDCs as being like sort of confined to a region. If a CBDC integrates with like a Wanchain, then you could have like a Chinese digital currency trading on Ethereum and back and forth, and it could be fully interoperable with the public blockchain. It's just not something that people talk about a lot, but Wanchain would seem to be well situated to help any kind of CBDC integrate with sort of the public blockchain ecosystem as well as the private ones.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When we look at the topology, there's a central bank issue the CBDC token, and then there could be local banks or banks in different countries can issue their own token, like bank token. And those bank token can be used by fintech companies to bring to the public blockchain through bridges. So there are many ways bridges can play a role over there to connect all these different banks, different authorities, blockchain.
Right. And then once again, the notion of these private blockchains and how that integrates with the system. So it's fascinating. There's definitely a lot of there's an open field for Wanchain, right?
Yeah, actually, Wanchain has a trusted bridge built already. We have the trusted bridge framework where we can bridge a private network or consortium network with public blockchain.
Excellent. So we were talking a bit before the episode, and Jack mentioned, when we talk about the operation of Wanchain, like how it actually operates, Jack referred to teleporting, because I think it goes to the mechanics. So, Jack, maybe do you want to sort of explain the sort of at a high level the mechanics of actually bridging between chains?
Yeah, I want to, use teleporting. I'm a stock track fan, right? And all the sci-fi movies, actually. But when we move assets from one chain to another, right, we have to make sure that no double spending is happening, right? We follow the we call it conservation law, right? And one asset, when one token is moved to another chain, make sure the original original one is like teleporting, right? And being erased or put in a place in the gate, and in a different chain, you maintain another one, right? And once that tokens finishes, duties, we have to move it back. Then the opposite has to happen, right? The copy has to be erased or burned, then move back to the original chain. And we have to make sure that no more tokens are created, or no less tokens are created, right? So this is very, very important. And also we have to have a mechanism to make sure that different chains are being recognized, and somehow they know each other, right? And we use a network to do that, right? Currently, certainly you can use a centralized authority or third party to do that, right? But that kind of defeats the purpose of the blockchain, right? We are building a network to facilitate, and basically people or the user actually trust this network of Storm nodes or other validators. Make sure that this whole process, cross-chain assets moved into cross-chain, different chains are being executed correctly. Yeah, that's why I wanted people to easily understand, use the teleporting mechanism. But actually, the technology itself is a lot more complicated, right? And Weijia and I actually have a patent for the interoperability and cross-chain technology in the U.S. Patent Office. The actual technology is quite more complicated, but to easy to understand, we just want to use this term. Yeah.
Right. So when you're moving assets from one chain to the other, you lock the assets on that chain, right? Because obviously, like Bitcoin, you don't want it spent again. So So I'm not sure how that mechanism is accomplished, but I guess it's just there's a message that's sent out to the network. Networkers validate that this block is locked. It's actually on chain that it's locked. Is that what it is?
Yeah, something like that. Weijia, do you want to go into details?
Yeah. There are two details here. First one is that it depends on the network. If the network supports smart contract, then the smart contract will lock it. So so it's controlled by the smart contract. Smart contract will lock it. If the network doesn't support a smart contract, then the Stallman node right? These 25 nodes or many nodes can work together with an MPC, multi-party computing, to lock the account using locking account. So you need to overcome these 25 nodes or 35 nodes to unlock the account, so to make it secure. So that's one thing. And second thing about teleporting, today we need to lock it because the smart contract do not talk to each other right now. We still do not have cross-chain smart contract operation. And someday when we talk about teleporting, we don't need to lock it. We can just burn it and then create the other one on the other side. But we do not have that mechanism right now, and that's why we still need to lock it. But I believe someday we should be able to just directly burn it and then create the other one on the other side of the blockchain.
Right. And if it's a two-way bridge, I guess, and if it's anticipated to be a two-way bridge, I guess you would still lock it, because maybe it would help if like we looked at it from the perspective of sharding. So sharding is just basically you take, you lock it on the network, you do transactions on the shard, and then it goes back to that network. Now, in your case, the cross-chain operability doesn't necessarily do that, but maybe just to help explain like the distinction between sharding, which is really almost like a private chain that's trying to offload some resource limitations, versus the true value of cross-chain interoperability, of course, is where you're utilizing other protocols that you couldn't utilize or you didn't have interoperability with. But maybe explain the distinction from a locking, minting, and burning mechanism to sharding.
Yeah, there are similarities between the two, and there are differences. And sharding is almost like a hierarchy. You have a Merkle tree that goes up, and then you can go through the Merkle tree to the other side of it. But for Crosschain, it doesn't have that tree structure. It's heterogeneous. It could be homogeneous, it could be heterogeneous. So it's more complex than the sharding topology. That's one thing. Second thing is that when we talk about interoperability, there are several factors here. There's the interoperability of asset. How do you transfer asset from one to the other? When we say locking, we mean locking the asset, just that. And then you also need to interoperability for messages, data, and also we have interoperability of state and also the command. Right. And for sharding, you need to deal with state, and they actually lock the state and lock some of the transactions over there. But Wanchain doesn't do that because we need to deal with the asset right now. So we just lock the asset on one side, and we don't lock the state of the blockchain. There's no way you can lock the state of the blockchain over there. So today we just lock the asset. And if in the future, when we do the cross-chain operation, the remote command, then they'll be very similar to the sharding, because you need to operate the command from one source chain to the other chain. They'll be similar to the sharding.
Great. So today, let's say I'm on Bitcoin. I lock it on Bitcoin, and now on Wanchain. Before, I guess, if I want to go on Ethereum, right? If I want to utilize Ethereum, what does Wanchain do after that the Bitcoin is locked? What's the next step in that process?
So basically,
at a high level,
Bitcoin, Bitcoin is locked, and then we know that this Bitcoin belongs to someone, and then there's a target.
Belong to the network. Yeah, network of let's say Wanchain. Yeah, the user actually trusts this network. The network controls the locked Bitcoin, right? At the same time, this network will create or mint another one on the target chain, for example, Ethereum, right? And assign that to this particular user. So basically, that user will have this minted token on Ethereum, and he can move the Ethereum BTC on Ethereum around, right? With his private key, right? He owns the asset. And once the user wants to move back, then follow the reverse protocol, then the network will recognize that cross-chain event, give the original token back after burning the minted one.
And the minted one is what is the minted one? Is it a Wanchain token, or is it a Ethereum token? What is being traded on the target chain?
Yeah, if it is on Ethereum, we call it, let's say, BTC at Ethereum. That's how our notation, Weijia invented that, right? So if BTC is on Wanchain, it will be BTC at Wanchain, right? And the whole infrastructure supports all these three different chains, as long as they on this network, and the user can treat that exactly the same as the original Bitcoin. So doesn't matter where the coin is minted.
Right. So and so does that mean that Wanchain is, the cross-chain interoperability is also is just a mechanism for spinning up wrapped tokens, right?
Yeah, simplistically, you can say it that way. Yeah, it's just.
I know it's simplistic.
It's that way. And the user actually specify which address they want the token to be minted at. So the user will say, this is the target chain, this is the target address. So we just mint it for that target address.
But interoperability, as Weijia mentioned earlier, is a lot more complicated just by moving the assets, right? It includes not only the assets, but also the information, the data, and also the command, right? Making it interoperable. You can command the action or event from a different chain, right? And that's why we are building the infrastructure from ground up and making more and more complicated.
Right. Right. And so then once you're done trading effectively the wrapped or on the target chain, if it's a two-way bridge, then you burn that wrap if you want to go back to the source chain, you burn that asset on the target chain, and I guess simultaneously, or I don't know the order, but you're also then creating or you're unlocking it on the source chain.
Yeah, unlocking is the right word for that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you're not recreating it because you've locked it. Then you'd have something just sitting out there, like waiting for something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And then at the Storeman and the Voucher level, do you want to talk to me about the honest majority assumption and how you ensure the security and the anti-collusion aspects of Wanchain?
Yeah, I think I can describe that. So Wanchain has some challenges. The first is about security. We need to make sure that bridges are secure. And second challenge is decentralization. We want to make it permissionless. Right? And the way we do it is that we have open enrollment. So I think at the 6th of each month, we allow everyone to stake their asset and say they want to be cross-chain bridges, and then we just rank the stake they put for that registration. And at this time, top 25 are chosen, and then within 3 days, they need to, if they are chosen, they need to set up their system based on the bridge operation steps procedure. And then after 3 days, this new group of storemen will start operation. So it's randomly selected, and it's ranked by the stake they put, and to make sure it has randomness and also has stake, so that to prevent them from collusion.
Right. And then also I think I read that, you have the typical slashing mechanisms if, as a potential penalty.
Yeah. So there are two kinds of penalty. One is that if the node doesn't do anything, then they become inactive. If they are inactive, we have a penalty for the reward they can get. And if they do something wrong, then there's a way to slash their stake.
Excellent. And so now thinking about, I know we talked a bit about CBDCs as a potential future path. How do you see Wanchain evolving over the next few years? Like this kind of cross-chain interoperability, does it become more ubiquitous? Is Wanchain in a position to sort of, by being at the center of the hub, have the capability of continuing to evolve and grow into other natural businesses?
Yeah, certainly. We are focusing on the public chain at this stage. I think it's badly needed as we see the more chains and DeFi applications opening up. People have to move their assets into different chains to pursue all those high yielding activities, right? And this is badly needed at this point. As we discussed earlier, Wanchain is trying to build a wide area networks of blockchains first, right? Let's say we got 10 or 20 or let's say 50 blockchains connected. We actually create a WAN of blockchains already. And then we can create many WAN, wide area networks, so other blockchains, or potentially we can work with other partners. And let's say if they have another wide area networks, we will be connecting with them as well. And certainly in the infrastructure level, we try to connect as many chains as possible. And if we can come up with a common protocol. And Weijia and I talk all the time about TCP/IP or HTTP. Like if we can become Tim Berners-Lee, then that'll be great, right? But anybody can make a proposal. So what is the ultimate? Universal, protocol for all the blockchains, public and private, to be connected. At that time, we'll try to find a solution, right? And Wanchain will be, giving the our contribution, right? Not only by providing the services to all these connected blockchains, but also their users, right? Once we have the infrastructure, we want to provide the services. We want to become, let's say, one-stop shop for all users for all the financial services in this new digital land, right? It doesn't matter what that is. We'll be working with the partners, build the services for our users. I think we have to be user-centric, right? Make sure that they will like to use this infrastructure just like they use the internet today. They probably won't even feel the technology is behind it, but everything is connected behind the scene, and they can move the assets just like we are sending the emails today. They can move assets and make cross-chain command like what we discussed earlier, right? And I think that's the world we are working toward for.
Excellent. When I was reading, I was doing some research, looking at some other things that you were working on, and one thing that struck me, I'm a lawyer, right? I was a general counsel for an exchange. I was I was at work for a bulge bracket law firm on the street, and worried about compliance and asset markets. And it was a comment about how Wanchain fits into a regulatory compliant structure for trading. And the way that it was framed is, it's you just bend your mind to think into it. If you're servicing a private chain, or you're servicing even a CBDC or some jurisdictional specific chain, they may, there is still the need to interoperate with the public blockchain. But if you create a private blockchain, then how do you do that, right? If you have all these rules to comply with, how do you do that? And Wanchain basically would facilitate, hey, I'm going to create a blockchain with all the regulatory compliance bells and whistles, what I have to do for AML and all this other stuff. And maybe it's not necessarily supported at the public layer, but from within the country, the trading that I'm doing, I can ensure that it's meeting my requirements in terms of the information I'm collecting. But then Wanchain would facilitate that interconnectivity to the public blockchain and still facilitate that interaction between the compliant and a more public, or what you might say is international, because it's an international world. You trade with other jurisdictions. You don't worry about the laws in every jurisdiction necessarily. But it could also even apply, I'm going to take it one step further. If, let's say that the US regulators say, hey, you have to have a comparable regulatory system. Gary Gensler, the SEC chairman, talked the other day about this. He talked about, I forget the name for it, but basically if you have a comparable regulatory structure, then there can be reliance between the two jurisdictions. And what's intriguing is that Wanchain could sort of facilitate that between the jurisdictions without the jurisdictions necessarily having to build all that interoperability themselves and waiting for it to happen.
I think, Jack, go
ahead.
Yeah, Eric, I think you brought up a very good point. And I want to mention that because we are submitting a proposal to CBDC challenge by MAS with consensus. And one of the items they have is about risk and challenges. And one of the risks and challenges we mentioned about regulations. And then we also have mitigation method for that. And so we describe it this way. We said that, yes, regulation is very important for CBDC. And we said that the whole interoperability should be layered. And there should be different regions have different regulation. And also regulation can be a blockchain by itself. And so that you can do the cross-chain for regulation as well. And you can leave that open, customizable, and then have some flexibility for blockchain to handle it. So it should be region-specific and country-specific for that.
Interesting. So let's pull on that thread a little bit. The regulation can be a blockchain by itself, but maybe you've thought into this, so maybe take that a step further.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about cross-chain interoperability, right, you have different blockchains, and like a DID, decentralized identity. So you can have one identity and apply that identity in different places. And then for blockchain, same thing. The beauty about blockchain is trustness, right? And different countries can have different regulations, and these regulations are separate from the financial blockchain itself. So the authority can build a blockchain themselves and put the regulations over there. So what needs to be done for the blockchain fintech company is to cross-chain to let identity regulation blockchain and pull out the regulation over there and apply that to the blockchain, to the cross-chain policy, so that the data will not leak from one blockchain to another, because there are countries who will prevent leaking of some user data from one country to another. So you need to apply that specific regulation to a cross-chain operation. And then you need to trust a source, and this source could be a regulation blockchain by itself.
Interesting. So that's there's a lot of wood to chop there as well. Do you see the integration, like when we start to think about personal identities, like, to the extent that some jurisdictions require reporting on personal identities? I've talked to a number of people on the podcast, regarding, like, and I know it's complicated, homomorphic encryption or even multi-party computation. Do you see those kinds of privacy enhancing technologies integrating with this cross-chain interoperability for regulatory blockchains?
Yeah, I think EA Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, right? One of the things they have done is to bring the privacy into blockchain, because the Ethereum blockchain itself, public blockchain itself, doesn't have privacy protection. So EA built the privacy layer to it. And I think for CBDC, the banks, they have kind of priorities for several things. One is the protection of privacy. Second is the regulation, right? And then third, of course, it's always about security. So yes, those components will be extremely, extremely important. And I think MPC, zero knowledge, proof, those are very, very important. And Wanchain, of course, is very interested in working on these technologies.
Well, it sounds like we're going to have to continue to follow you guys as you kind of build into this, because this space is probably going to get more regulated. But to the extent that operators like yourself make that easier, that's a net benefit to the entire system. So exciting stuff. It's a great place to be. Exciting times for you guys. Congrats. So before we break, I've asked a number of questions, but maybe I missed something. Maybe there's something you wanted to talk about, or you think would be good to tell the listeners about that I missed. So this is your chance.
Yeah, Eric, I have a question for you. You just mentioned that you are a lawyer, and for us, lawyer is someone very high up. Okay, so can you say something about yourself? What is your background, and what is your role in blockchain? Yeah, say something. Yeah.
Oh, so okay. This is my promo shot. No, I'm just kidding. So I come from the TradFi, or the traditional finance background. I was associated with an electronic order management system, alternative trading systems, multiple ones. Before then transitioning, I became the general counsel and CLO of a stock exchange, where I was for a number of years. Before then, trying to build a system myself for that as a founder and CCO. It didn't get past the Greek debt crisis. So then I went into business for myself, and I represented stock exchanges, and I represented digital asset exchanges, centralized exchanges. And, my practice has both the traditional finance component, brokers, stock exchanges, et cetera, as well as the more digital asset component. And obviously, to even get into the space, you can't ignore cybersecurity. You can't ignore privacy. I owned a cybersecurity company for a while. I hate to say it wasn't all that successful, so it's kind of in the business, kind of in the process of winding down. But these are all areas that everything gets so interconnected. I'll say, what's interesting as a lawyer, when people talk about the rabbit hole, you go down the rabbit hole, it's like Alice in Wonderland. It's the same world, just everything's different, right? It's like it's another world. It's just everything's sort of upside down. And in many ways, that's sort of what it's like as a digital asset lawyer in this space.
Yeah, impressive. Yeah, I was in the financial space as well for quite a few years. Yeah, for me to step into the blockchain space, I was lucky enough, right, to be exposed. But at the same time, I was willing to try. I think it's important, for our audience to give it a try. Either, to do something, either download our application, right? Go to our Wanchain, let's say, website, to download our desktop, either wallet, or try our web-based application, right? Maybe you use our system to get a little bit of token somewhere, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a crypto asset like Bitcoin or Ethers or USDC or some, tokens, anything that you want, right? Just give it a try, right? And use the cross-chain mechanism and see for yourself, right? To see where the value, and also maybe give us suggestions what we can do better and how we can improve our systems. Just try it out. That will be something I want to leave to the audience.
Yeah, I'll say this, when I look at people who utilize your application, you have a very strong and charged community that obviously, like anything, that community needs to grow, right? Because you're trying to build a business, but those who are using Wanchain today like it a lot. And I think, one of the things that resonates, and hopefully like through this podcast helps with that, is that, the word has to get out, right? People, you've done a lot technically, you've really been thoughtful in creating this and engaging with the development community. And now, the rest of the world needs to know what a powerful tool Wanchain actually is. So it was, so before we break, so people who want to learn more about Jack or Weijia or Wanchain, where should they go?
Yeah,
social media, website.
Yeah, go to our website first, wanchain.org. You can follow our Twitter account or go to our Telegram, become a member there, and ask us questions. All the social media accounts are on our website. Just search for Wanchain, WAN chain.
Excellent. Yeah, I saw you have all the LinkedIn. How about anybody particularly active on Twitter?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
The Wanchain,
that active,
or do you do? Yeah. Okay. Do you do personal account stuff or
yeah,
keep
certainly.
it
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Excellent. So, gentlemen, thanks so much for coming on the show. This was great. I really appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you so much, Eric. Really appreciate it.